All right, let's dive right in. We're going to explore the real foundations of the modern state. And trust me, its origins are way deeper and, frankly, a lot stranger than you might imagine.
You know, we usually think about power coming from things like constitutions or laws or maybe elections. But what if I told you that the state's fundamental authority, its power over you, your family, your property, actually comes from a place that's much, much older and way more complicated?
Yeah, to really get to the bottom of this, we have to unravel two totally distinct parallel histories. Think of them as two threads that started centuries apart but were eventually woven together to create the very fabric of modern power.
So, let's start with the first thread. We're going to call it the red thread. This one is all about the idea of power over people. And get this, it didn't start as some legal thing. It started as a spiritual concept.
This timeline, well, it shows a really fascinating evolution. You're looking at almost 1,000 years, where a purely theological claim about spiritual duty slowly but surely morphed into a very real, very concrete form of state power. So how on earth did that happen? It all kicks off right here, way back in 492 AD. Pope Gelasius I makes this absolutely revolutionary claim. He argues that, hey, since priests are responsible for the eternal souls of everybody, and that includes kings, well then their authority must be superior. This wasn't just some simple power play, it was the seed for a universal claim of guardianship over all of humanity.
Okay, fast forward to 1073, and this idea gets a formal name, plenitudo potestatis. It means fullness of power. And the logic here is kind of wild. If the church has the ultimate authority over your immortal soul, then it must also have authority over anything in the physical world, your body, your land, your stuff, that could possibly put that soul in danger. The Pope basically became a kind of universal parent to everyone.
And this is the final handoff. The power gets cloned. In the 1340s, the English crown just straight up adopts this exact same logic. They give the concept a new name, Parens Patriae, which means parent of the nation. See, the state didn't invent this power, it just took that red thread of spiritual guardianship from the church and made it secular.
But here's the thing, guardianship over people was only half of the equation. At the same time, a second, parallel power was being created that was all about the absolute ownership of land. We'll call this the gold thread, and its origin story is, no joke, one of history's most audacious cons.
So here's how it all went down. In the 8th century, this document just appears. It claims that the Roman Emperor Constantine had gifted the entire Western Roman Empire to the Pope. And for centuries, this document was the legal basis for the Church's claim to huge territories. Then, in 1440, a scholar proves it's a complete and total fake. But you know what? By then, it was too late.
And this is just a masterclass in how power really works, right? Even after Lorenzo Valla proved, without a shadow of a doubt, that the donation of Constantine was a forgery, the entire legal and political system built on top of that lie was just too big, too entrenched to be dismantled. The machine just kept on running.
Okay, so now let's jump to the 15th century, because this is the moment. This is when these two separate threads, the guardianship over people and the ownership over land, are finally woven together, and they create a totally new, completely unprecedented form of power.
So just to recap, on one hand, you've got the red thread, which is the right to control people as their ultimate guardian. And on the other hand, you have the gold thread, the right to own territory based on a centuries-old lie. Two distinct, absolutely immense claims to power. So, what happens when you combine them?
You get total domination. Seriously. The fusion of these two powers happened in a series of documents that would literally change the world. The most famous one was a papal bull from 1493 called Inter Caetera, which was issued right after Columbus got back from his first voyage. And this is exactly what those documents did. They braided the two threads together. They gave European powers the authority to sail to new lands and just claim ownership. That's the gold thread. And at the very same time, they also granted the power to treat the people already living there as if they were wards, like children who needed a guardian, and that's the red thread. It was the complete blueprint for conquest. So, you might be thinking, okay, that's interesting history, but why does any of this 15th century stuff matter to me today? Well, because that braided rope, it was never cut. Both of these ancient threads are still woven deeply into the fabric of our modern legal and political systems. Just look around you. The legacy of that red thread, Parens Patriae, is alive and well anytime the state acts like a guardian. Think family courts, child welfare services, or public health mandates. And the legacy of the gold thread, it's the very foundation of modern property law and the whole concept of a nation's absolute sovereignty over its territory. They are still operating, often invisibly, all around us, every single day.
So this leaves us with one last really crucial question. Why? What was the motive for the papacy to braid these threads together and basically give away the rights to the entire planet? Well, the answer isn't about some grand philosophy or theology. No, it's about something way more practical.
Yep, bankruptcy. By 1418, the papacy was, for all intents and purposes, broke. So granting sovereignty became a business model. They created these legal instruments that could turn land and people into assets, commodities they could grant in exchange for money and political backing. In a very real sense, they sold the world to pay their debts, and we are all still living inside the system they created.